back at the farm, the Bunny Farm. You guys, especially you anglers, I know your eyes are glued to the run behind me, and there's finally fish in there. The sockeye salmon runs are in there. They should be real fresh, chrome-looking fish, I'm thinking. So, oh, there's one right there. So after we get some voices heard, I didn't bring my waders, so I can't get the camera far over the other side where they're following the fish game trail up the river and get them on video. So I'm gonna go up to the falls after this real quick and throw the camera in there, and I'll guarantee you there'll be a few fish in there we can look at. It'd be pretty cool. What else? We got guests at the house right now, so my brain's so scrambled. I usually got something I need to share with everybody, and I always forget. Usually. One thing I could share, a little tidbit, is I got a text from Dave yesterday, Dave Plattis, saying that the U.S. just dropped their whatever. I don't even stay up on top of the rules of what the travel rules right now. Being in Canada just doesn't matter. Being in the communist state of Canada. But anyway, Dave said, I think he said I could travel down to the U.S. So right away, he invited me to come down to a function in Washington State in June sometime. And possibly hang out with him and do some talking, public speaking. I might. It's a ways out of my way, and obviously right away I retorted with terrorizing him with steelhead videos that I've been making, trying to lure him to come up and do that with me, which he will eventually. But I think possibly it might be more effective if Dave and I do, if we make some videos with each other, having a conversation, or even live feed to everybody here and on his channel. I think that would possibly be a lot more effective than me going to a gathering in Washington State where there might be a few hundred people, right? I don't know. I'm on the fence because that date of that he invited me down, I have some wildlife biologists up here trying to book myself, my boat, and my inflatable to take them around for a couple days, looking at some things on the West Coast, nature-wise, and I was kind of looking forward to, I haven't booked them yet. I was going to do that more so because I want to talk to them about this topic. And that doesn't leave me any time to travel down to be on time to hang with Dave. So we'll see. We'll see. Obviously I'm just babbling out of my frickin' randomly babbling right now, but that's the only news that anybody might be interested in right now would be the possibility of Dave and I speaking together again in Washington State this month. I'm on the fence because obviously I've been busier than hell, and I wouldn't mind going off, and I guess these wildlife biologists are studying eagles or something. I know there's a whole bunch of remote eagle nests around the coast, and I got the boats to get to them and to get them on shore, and I think that would be really interesting to talk to those guys about this topic and see if they were willing to open up. And maybe videotape it, who knows. But anyways, let's get on with some voices here. This is titled, these are all fairly new. It's easy for me right now because I'm so unorganized this morning, and I'm going down from the very top of the list just for today because I know I haven't read them before. So the title is Surrounded. Watch for the fish rising behind me. Surrounded by 3 Sasquatches, the title of this email share. Hi Steve, thanks for all you do to get the word out. My name is Dan, I'm 52 and I live in Michigan. I've had a few encounters and here's one. I'm an avid outdoorsman, hunt, fishing, just enjoying the outdoors. This encounter happened November 15, 2004 in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. UP's got so much action. I got friends of mine that have a hunting cabin up there. They live in Howell, Michigan. They don't know of any of these sightings themselves though, yet. I was deer hunting opening morning and got out in my spot before light and sat in the dark for 45 minutes till light. Right at first light, I had a deer in front of me at 35 yards and it was a nice buck. I have a 12 gauge 870 Remington shotgun. I got one of those. And rifled barrel. No, don't have one of those. And I'm very accurate with it. I aimed and shot the deer and it ran to my left, to right, over and down the ridge into the swamp next to me. I had another buck tag, so I just sat there to see what else would show. I kept hearing something moving around in the swamp, so I just sat thinking it might be another deer. After an hour, nothing came out and the movement stopped. So I decided to go look for my buck. following the blood trail over the ridge into the swamp to where it's finally to its final resting spot. The blood trail was easily followed. To my amazement, the deer was gone. Checking the area, no further blood trail, is just like the deer up and disappeared. At the time, left me baffled. Thought to myself, what the hell? So, I went back to camp and told my buddy I was hunting with, and he made fun of me and said, "You must have just wounded it. Your gun must be off." He'd been hunting with a 30-06 with a scope, and I knew that gun was on. I sighted it in. He said, "Go ahead and take it out," because he wasn't going to go out that evening. I took his gun and went back out to about the same spot, just 200 yards down the same ridge, to the other corner of the swamp, where the swamp butted up to a tall pine thicket and the ridge. Overlooking the swamp, I seen at the time I thought was a black bear going through the swamp from my right to left, heading into the pine thicket. All of a sudden, I hear running deer coming from the swamp towards my location. 8 to 10 deer came running at me at a terrified speed, like they were being chased by a predator. I'd never seen deer running like this before, and 2 nearly knocked me down. Thought for a second, what the F was that? This really struck me odd. I had to take a minute to reflect. It's now getting to the last 15 to 20 minutes of light, so I started walking slowly down towards the pine thicket, thinking I might get a final chance at a buck. Slowly moving through the pine thicket on a 2-track covered in pine needles, quiet, I kept hearing something walking through the swamp on a course to intersect with me. As I approached, I heard some loud grunting coming from the swamp, some 20-25 feet from me. By now, I got my Mini-Mag flashlight out and had shined it over to where the sound was coming from, now at 15 to 20 feet away. A big, tall, 9 to 10 foot, 700 to 800 pound, hairy figure standing right next to the swamp. I froze, thinking, what the hell is that? I could see clearly what was a Sasquatch. For a brief moment, fear ran through me, and I raised my rifle, also holding my light on the thing. Thinking nobody will believe me, and I said to myself, they will if there's a body. At that moment, the thing let out the most loudest roar I have ever heard. My whole body vibrates with the volume. Like one person said, if you stand in front of a really big speaker. Back to my encounter. At that time, I had a voice in my head. Say, "You don't want to shoot me, and I don't want to hurt you." And it was mind speak. Within what seems like seconds, I could hear 2 of them coming from behind me, one on my left and one on my right. Up there where I was, when it's dark out, you can't see your hand in front of your face, literally. I thought at the time I just want to get out alive, to see my family again. So I lowered my rifle and I said to them out loud, "I don't want to hurt you, and hopefully you don't want to hurt me, but I will defend myself if I have to." I wasn't afraid until I was surrounded on all sides, and I couldn't see the other 2, but I could hear them very close. Backed out away from them, and when I was 40 yards out, I turned and ran towards the road, which was 150 yards away. One caught me halfway and grabbed my backpack and picked me up. At that point, I can't remember, so I woke up next to the road an hour later. Steve, my friends, teased me saying I'm not afraid of anything, steel balls, but this rattled me. For years, nobody believed me except my wife, which knows I don't make stuff up. I've watched your channel since it came out, and have several times wanting to send you one of many encounters. Keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate you and what you're doing. People need to know what those assholes in Washington are keeping from the people. P.S. If you want me to send in more, let me know. Sincerely, Dan Priest. Dan, that is one hell of a story, man. One hell of an experience. Nothing anybody would envy you of. Not a chance. And of course, always, I think the answer's been consistently the same. Every single person that offers up more, we never say no. Okay, man, so send it in. Get it into us, please. Especially if it's going to help you or help other people, right? And then the physical contact, obviously going to be a handful of people that says, yeah, right. But think about how many people have emailed in that have had physical contact. That one picked up that kid looking at him. Kid looking at the turtle. The man, when he was a little boy looking at that turtle, the thing picked him up. We've had those two guys in a quad. Thing ran up behind him, flipped the quad upside down on them as they were ripping along. There's lots. I can hear those fish behind me. No bear poop yet. Alright, let's read another one here. Paisley, Florida, Ehosa encounter near Ocala. Paisley, Florida encounter. Dear Steve subscribers, you can use my name. I'm John Wiley.
I'll try and get out, if you're leaving, I'll try and get out of your way. If not, I'll just go this way.
Oh, I'm not leaving. I was making a video.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
That's okay. It's kind of like, I couldn't hear anything. All of a sudden, boom, there's these three big dogs I've never seen before.
Hey, come on. I'll try and get my...
All good.
Come on.
That was a little different. Three big mastiffs, brindled up mastiffs. No collars on and no human beings right in front of them, like, whoa! Growling, making noises. It's kind of like, well, what do you do now? Well, this gets a hold of your leg. Wouldn't be too cool, right? Alright, here we go. Getting back on with it. This looks like a short one. It's titled, My Story. I've had a full life. Now in my mid-70s, I have hunted and fished from the Midwest to the Southwest. I've spent many hours in the field and have lived and been comfortable in remote areas. As an adult, I have never had an encounter with anything that I would consider unusual. When I was young, around 10 years old, I did have a sighting that I could not explain. In about 1959, I was sitting on the front porch of my home one summer night. I was raised in northern Illinois, and it was a warm and humid night. I seen something moving down the other side of the street. I first noticed it about a block up the street, and it steadily walked past my house and continued on until I could no longer see it. As it passed, I could only see the outline of it. I could see through it. The gait and arm swing at that time reminded me of a very large gorilla, only walking upright. It made no indication that it seen me. I was not afraid of what I was seeing and wondered why I saw it. At the time, I had never heard of Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, so that never entered my mind. Years later, when I seen the Patterson film, I thought, wow, that creature moves like what I saw, only not translucent. I told my husband about my experience, and he encouraged me to share my encounter. He said it was an important piece of the puzzle. Thank you for your time, Janet McMahon. McMahon? God, I hate mispronouncing people's names. Janet, I absolutely appreciate you emailing that in, especially with that point made, the point that sadly previous smaller handful of researchers refused to share that. If you had written into them, you wouldn't even have, nobody would have heard about your experience, and they definitely would have eliminated that point, the translucent part, because, you know, nesting monkeys that rut and migrate don't do that. Anyway. You're not alone, Janet. You know you're not alone. The amount of people of everyday walks of life, including the nuclear scientists, other professional backgrounds, have all noted the exact same thing. Right? So we talk about it here, and we share it here no matter what. Another person has witnessed something that many of us just cannot wrap our heads around at all. Many of us don't want to hear it all. But thanks to people, brave people like Janet, we're going to hear about it, and it's going to help somebody's puzzle piece get put together, right? Now, what do we have here? This is titled My Experience. Thank you so much again, Janet, for saying that, and I appreciate you. Appreciate you sending that. My Experience and its effects. Dear sir, thank you for your time in reading this, and thank you for your mission to provide a welcome and safe place to share personal experiences. No problems. Not done without people like you, alright? This event took place in the late summer in Colorado some years ago. The camp was set up approximately 8,500 foot in elevation in the late afternoon of a very remote area of this mountain. The location was chosen because of its elevation, as well as numerous other factors such as water, dense soil growth, etc. Mainly, however, it was because of its remote location. The purpose of this whole trip was to get our operators comfortable and familiar with operating in a woodland setting. Bluntly, we were armed to the teeth, blacked out and tacked out, as they would say. We were also 24 hours ahead of the rest of the crew, 3 strong. Our purpose was to prep the area for the guests who would be arriving later the following day. With all the prep work done, we gathered by the fire in the last light of the evening for a bit of banter about previous work we had done together, as well as going over details of the planned exercises for the coming days. The camp itself was nestled at the end of a very narrow gorge where the mountain continues its climb upwards. A small creek snaked around between camp and where the mountain continues, with a very steep climb upwards another 1,500 feet. Our conversation and evening calm was abruptly ended with an unimaginable sound of a tree snapping and crashing to the ground. Without giving it a thought, the 3 of us headed in the direction of the noise. It was actually a short distance to the base of where the mountain and the creek meet. With flashlight in hand, we saw clearly what tree had come down. It had been 15 feet or so up the mountain and had been broken off about a foot above the ground. It was a live fir tree with a conservative diameter of 12 inches. Not a breath of wind. No rot in the tree, and a good clean break. Obviously no reason for this fresh live tree to come down. We looked at each other without a word, We looked at each other without a word said, and returned to camp. Back at camp, we quickly tried to reason what had just taken place and what possibly could have snapped that tree off, then moved away in absolute silence. All 3 of us are native to the Pacific Northwest and are very familiar with the native wildlife, and concluded quickly that literally nothing native could have taken a tree of such size. Bear, elk, moose can bust through a good-sized tree, sure enough, but nothing as large as this tree was. Yet something brought it down. We came to the conclusion that we should make a noise to push out whatever was in our little canyon, so we used the only real good noise makers we all had plenty of. We opened up on the hillside like the jungle scene out of Predator, mowing the mountain from side to side. We each dumped several mags that ended in an ear-ringing silence. Not a step, not a twig snap, or a rock fall, nothing. What was it? We'll never know. It wasn't until many years later that the thought of Bigfoot had come to mind. Looking back, I'm guessing that's exactly what it was. That pretty little remote canyon was probably its home, and quite possibly its ancestors' home as well. In its own way, I'm figuring that it was asking us to move on. It's possible that it had tried other tactics earlier that day, and we had just been too busy to notice. Having the wisdom of some years now, I actually hold some regret for not being intelligent enough to realize we should have moved on. The following days brought no more such incidents or other such oddities to note. Whatever it was, it seems was effectively pushed out and left us alone. Well, sir, thank you again for taking the time. I spent many years in the wilderness of the Pacific Northwest. Not even once have I seen anything that even remotely resembled a Sasquatch, Bigfoot, or whatever you care to call it. I will say I've honestly never looked for it either. Honestly, never given it a thought till this year. It's been a pleasure listening to your readings, and it's actually led me to put 2 and 2 together in my own account. Keep up the good work, Eric. Eric, we don't put 2 and 2 together unless people like you bravely email us in. and share honestly what they've witnessed, right? So appreciate you, man. I'm glad this channel's helped you somewhat anyway, right? Man, the sun's bright. I haven't seen it for weeks. Let's get another one out. Hi, Steve. I'm Justin from Riverton, Wyoming. You've read 2 of my accounts within the last year. Well, in the last couple of months, I encountered a female with a juvenile. Plus, hearing what sounded like a cow calf being carried away. It was a horrible and sad sound it made. This has given me some bad dreams, and has given me a sense that the beings can be a problem. Game and fish don't listen, of course. How do I handle this? Please advise me, Steve. Or here's an email, phone number. Thank you, Steve. Okay. Please advise you. Bad dreams. You know what? I'm not really a counselor, that's for sure. And I can't, I mean, honestly, there's not much I can advise on for somebody having bad dreams from what they experience. We've all had bad dreams. I think, from what I know, the best thing you can do is speak openly. Just keep speaking openly, right? And listening to people speaking openly, and then it'll possibly help your mind accept it as a little more normal than it actually is, and then you can start piecing it together and dealing with it that way. But I'm definitely not a counselor of any kind, right? So I can't give you any professional advice on what to do. I mean, I've had traumatic experiences in my life where it gave me nightmares for almost a year straight one time. But we eventually get over it, right? We deal with it in a healthy way. Never start drinking. One thing I can say to everybody is never turn to booze and drugs to deal with uncomfort or pain. That's the absolute wrong thing to do. But you keep speaking about it openly, and you find people who are honest and brave and would like to talk about it openly with you as well. And I know obviously that does help. That's what I can offer up. It's unfortunate, man. We all have the nightmares in life. Just try not to react by doing bad things to yourself, thinking that's going to help. Meaning hitting the bottle, right? Or becoming abusive and keeping those things in to causes inner turmoil and then lashing out at other people around you without knowing it. That's not a good thing either. I'm going to share one more and then I gotta get out of here. It's titled The Watchers. Hi Steve, please do not use my name. I'm watching and learning from your channel. Thank you for all you're doing and keep it coming. I live here in Southern Ohio. You've spoken about here at times. You have spoken about here at times I have seen. The reason I'm writing is because of what the Owl Man has said. It rang home with me and what's happening here. I moved into my new home last year as a spike in activity was going on in the hills around us. We live in a valley surrounded by hills and dense forest. While setting up the farm one day, I heard trees crashing and some really odd sounds coming from the forest. After about 20 years in the woods of nations, all around the world, I've seen some really odd things. Us Army Rangers, sometimes I think we cornered the market on strange things in the woods. After several days, things didn't calm down. They went the opposite direction. Now we had and still have the sound of trees snapping. I found a few that have been classic signs. Scared the hell out of me one day. They were so loud, I hope that word meant loud and close. On both sides of the valley we were in are many signs of them. I hear chatter from time to time, like samurai, I think you call it. I know I'm being watched from the hills almost daily. As to why, I don't know. Maybe there is a version of the Truman Show, and this is why I chose to write you. We've made friends with the hundreds of raccoons that live here, so much so they walk up to us now. An endless source of irritation for my dog, LOL. The activity is so close to the house, a few yards away, I think that actual contact is only a matter of time now. The barn seems to be the area of the greatest activity. I've checked it several times, no avail. Nothing yet. The dog is focused on the barn almost every day around 6 to 7. Something draws her attention to the barn. I'll keep you up on what happens next. I wonder if I have gotten a name and will they tell me what it is someday? I don't know. Time's gonna tell. I don't know. You're gonna go about life the way you're gonna choose to go about it with this. I would advise not to start leaving them food. That's just me. That doesn't seem to end well too often for many people, right? Especially if all of a sudden you stop giving them food. Man, okay, my focus is starting to lose here. Sun, I got guests at the house. Sarah's not stoked on me leaving her alone there right now. Entertaining by herself, and I gotta get moving. I might come back, this evening and do this again, because I'm getting behind, but here's one more short one I'm gonna get up before I go, alright, you guys? This is titled Antler Sheds. Hi, Steve, bless you, man. You've helped me a lot, and I appreciate it. You have my respect and love. Hey, man, you're helping out by emailing, all right? Thank you for the kind words. I just want you to know, I'm aware of at least 2 other men that specifically have those type of experience like you had with that shed antler that was placed on a trail for you. One is related to animal skulls. He once requested to find one and now finds skulls placed on the path he travels in various woodland areas. All the best, Dean. Okay, that's kind of vague and quick, Dean. Thanks for emailing that in. We're going to email again with more detail. You know, obviously somebody's finding skulls on the trail nonstop. That's a little odd. Also, what flavor of skulls, right? How old were they? How fresh were they? How are they positioned? What species was it, you know? But anyway, that's all she wrote. I'm going to take another cast here real quick with the rod and see what's in the water. I'll be back again shortly, guys. My concentration's... I can't concentrate right now. I gotta go. Anyway. There's a fish right there. I will be back shortly. Alright, there's no way I'm not gonna get that fish in this camera. Watch this. Screw it, I'm going in there in my jeans. It's only water, right? I can dry it off when I get home. The things fish will make a man do. Now we're gonna get some action.